During the time of the plagues that Yah brought into Mitzrayim, there was a period of time where Israel experienced the effects of the first three. But after that, in the book of Exodus, chapter 8 and verse 23, Yah says, I shall put a ransom between my people and your people. Whatever happened to the line of distinction? Welcome to Foundations for Life with Mike Clayton and myself, Barry Phillips. We're glad you're with us. Mike, are you distinct today? Are you separated, brother? Are you holy?
Hallelujah! Oh boy, some of that Pentecostal just is always right below the surface, isn't it?
I got to add one thing. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. According to what I'd like to say, Barry, is that yeah, absolutely, totally, completely, except for I had a little bout with a cold last week. Kathy's just getting over something, had a very difficult time for a couple of days. And I know many people today that are going through difficult times. It's part of a fallen world that we live in. And that I don't want that to be as an excuse, because I've been talking about this for many years, that I personally believe there is coming a day of a distinction between those that are walking in covenant and those that are not. I think the yearning is that we would be farther along than we are. The reality is we're not. The reality is we're not as far along as we would like to be. And so it causes it should cause an introspection into our lives of, and this is a place that the enemy can use things for condemnation. Mm-hmm. Well, you're sick because you got sin in your life. And you've heard that, from the old Pentecostal days. But it should cause us an introspection to start to continue to consider things of our lives. And is there still things left that we haven't dealt with? This whole subject is one that, again, can cause a lot of condemnation, can sound judgmental, and that's the last thing we want to do, because what we're wanting to do is have people set free. And I'm talking set free in their finances, set free in their health, set free in their spirit, in their emotions, in their marriages. Everything, every part of our being is set free to serve Him.
Mike, last week I was in prayer. My discerning and beautiful wife had just this strong thing come upon her in the spirit to establish a stream of prayer. So many needs that our congregation was aware of, and she has organized an hour assigned to people a piece for prayer. So, for example, from 12 noon to 1 o'clock, I have an hour where I'm interceding over our accumulated list of needs. And we are seeing dramatic miracles and answers to prayer taking place. But we are covering approximately 15 hours a day in prayer. And while in prayer a few days ago, I was crying out about COVID. So many were experiencing the Omicron version of COVID. And I was asking, Father, where is the line of distinction? I don't understand why not only did this disease over the last 2 years now, why it has not only affected your people who are set apart, but good and righteous people have died from this. Mm-hmm. So that, we can't say, well, it's the sinners that are dying and it's the righteous that are surviving. Well, that's obviously just not so.
Yeah.
And there are too many righteous people to say, well, there must have been, as you said, there must have been sin in their lives that we were not aware of. Just that's just not plausible.
Yeah.
So again, crying out, where is the line of distinction? What I heard unsettled me. And it has remained with me since. So there can be no line of distinction without separation. My people want to be syncretized with the world and refuse to be set apart and separate from it. So out of that, I didn't hear him say, as long as you are watching TV, or as long as you play golf, or as long as you take walks in the park, or tell a joke. He's not asking us, I don't believe, to become a hermit hidden away in a cave of holiness and seclusion, to be, I'm trying to think of the word that fits that terminology, but a recluse of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be involved in the world that is around us. And I believe as long as we have life, we're to enjoy it. But at the same time, our minds, our affections, our yearnings and desires, our dreams, our goals, all those things have to be for that which is set apart. And where we have things that are simple, indulgent, carnally based, we need to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
We need to deal with it quickly. It says in the book of Revelation, Mike, as it describes in chapter 9 about these locusts, it's interesting that the locust was the issue, if I'm not mistaken, that Yah said there's going to be a line of distinction about.
Mm-hmm.
And in Revelation 9, it's these demonic locusts that come up out of the pit. And it says in verse 4, and it was said to them that they should not harm the grass of the earth or any green matter, any green tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of Elohim upon their foreheads. There is to be a people that are sealed and set apart, and the line of distinction will be drawn. And there are things that will be taking place some point in the future that will affect those that refuse and reject Elohim, but will not affect those who have been sealed by him. I guess our question is, what are we thinking about being set apart to a place that we're distinct?
Okay, so back to the word says that we are to be in the world, but not of the world. Okay, so that tells me we're not to live a life of a monk, a recluse, a hermit, like you're talking about. That we need to be actively engaged in the life of people around us.
Sure.
There's no way for us to be, and we were just discussing this before the program, there's no way for us to be an influence to someone when we're hiding out in a cave. And there is a group of people out there today that would, and I teach preparation. I'll be teaching that this weekend to a group of people. But there's this group that says, okay, we need to go hide in caves and bunkers. Well, if we look at scripture, Esau is the one that hides in caves and bunkers. The people of Yah are not called to hide. We're called to be a light. And so we need to be that. But we cannot be a light if our conversation, if our lifestyle, if our interests, if everything that's a part of our being is the same as that which is part of everybody else's being. There has to be a distinction. There has to be people that there have to be people in our lives that look at us and go, you know, you're strange. I've never met anybody like you. Do people around us see us as different, not peculiar, not crazy weird, but different, set apart. So if that be said, I get this picture, Barry, and this is not a statement of regarding tattoos, okay? But this is just what I'm going to go to. There's a singer, I don't even know the terms, okay? But Justin Bieber, okay? I've never listened to a song that he's sung. I have no idea anything about the guy really, except for I guess that he had a tattoo on his arm that said Yeshua or something like that. And there was this thing about people, wow, he has this tattoo that has Yeshua in Hebrew. So what? So what? This like a gangbanger that's got, all kinds of demonic tattoos all over his body, but over here on this wrist is one that says, I love Jesus. If somebody has to look for the godliness in our life past all the other junk, maybe we ought to take a different look at what we're portraying. Okay, again, that wasn't about tattoos. That was a picture.
Yeah. I talked this past Shabbat about peculiar, that we are to be a peculiar people.
Did my name come up?
No. I didn't say it. I may have thought it, but I didn't say it.
All right. Well, I'll have to work on it a little bit more then.
But we have justified our weirdness, strangeness, out of the box things that we do by saying, well, he has called us to be a peculiar people. That's not the application of the word. If you look up the word peculiar, while it can reference weird, strange, out of the ordinary, it also has an older meaning, which means belonging to someone else, or to another group. Something is peculiar to someone else. That is, it belongs in particular to someone else. So what Yah was saying, you are a people who will belong distinctly to me. We have applied the peculiar, strange, weird, out of the ordinary aspect of it. Well, this is just the way that he may be. No, he's asking you to be so attached to him that you're readily identified as attached to him. Now, there are various denominations and varieties of, we'll limit it to Christianity and Hebrew roots. We'll leave all the other ones alone, where a manner of dress. When I was raised early on, the denomination that I was a part of as a younger child forbade the use of cosmetics and jewelry, especially for women. Jewelry for anybody, but cosmetics in particular, women. And some really were hardlined about women even cutting their hair. So women would oftentimes pile their hair up on top of their head, behind their head, or something other. I mean, they had to do something with it. It just kept growing. But even to trim the split ends off of it, you could be really shamed.
Oh, yeah.
So women were plain, unadorned, and had a lot of hair. And why they thought that was holy, because it was holiness. It was the attempt to be holy. The women may have been just wonderful people. And as far as I can remember, they were. But the attitude that it fostered was constant scrutiny and judgmentalism. I remember the conversation in my family's automobile going home on a Sunday night, where mom and dad were talking about whether men should wear a short sleeve shirt or not standing in the choir. I mean, if the hair on a man's forearm is a problem, if a man doesn't wear a tie to church, but he wears a bow tie, ties are holy, bow ties are pride. The idea of distinction cannot be that is judgmental. Well, you go to the grocery store because someone doesn't look like me, therefore they're not like me. They must not be holy. I don't know that person. I don't know their name. I don't know their family background. I don't know their spiritual walk. I can look at them and make assumptions, and that's judgment. Then I'm as guilty as anybody else with any other sin if I'm walking in condemnation and judgment on people because I don't think they measure up to whatever lines I'm drawing. It's the Father's line that we're trying to reach toward, and that can only be had by the grace of Yeshua and by the Ruach HaKodesh operating in our lives.
Well, this is the scripture of Samuel of Elohim does not look on outward appearances, but upon the inward man. We live in a society that's all about outward appearance, and people do not do not concern themselves with what is a person, what's their life, what's their lifestyle. No, it's all about what's on the outside or what's a person say. It doesn't matter what they do. And this is, we had a president a few years ago. Well, my private life is my own business. No, it's not when you're in that situation. You talk about outward appearance. I was a part of Assembly of God Church years ago. Had a lady who was a very close friend of Kathy and mine. She was actually our landlord. And Sister Leroy was an amazing organ player. A piano, organ, could play anything. I mean, just play the keys off the thing. And she told me that they would. This was years prior to us getting there. That one of the pastors would call her. She had lost a lung. She only had I think about a half of one lung that was operating. So she had a difficult time being around people with perfumes and all kinds of stuff. Anything kind of set her off. And so she said the pastor would always call her. The pastor's wife would call her and say, Sister Leroy, we don't have anybody to play tonight. Can you come? I know it's a difficult time, but can you come and play? So she said, I'd get in my car, I'd drive over there to the church. And she said, I'd come in, I'd sit down at the piano. And inevitably, the pastor's wife would come over to her with a little Kleenex or a hanky and wipe the lipstick off of her lips and say, Sister Leroy, you know that we don't allow that here in the church. Yeah. I led her to Messiah on her deathbed. If you're more concerned about the lipstick.
Her or the preacher's wife?
What? Yeah. Her. I led her to Messiah on her deathbed. But they were so concerned about her lipstick that they forgot to talk to her about Messiah. So I got all this about outward appearance, that we're not to look at outward appearance. I don't care what the color of the skin color of a man or woman is. I could care less.
No.
They can be purple polka dot. It doesn't make a bit of difference to me. What I look for is, what is the person? Who is the person that's inside of this thing?
Yes.
And that's what the Father looks at. Here's going back to where we're at in life. I think most of us would like to say, hey, we're right on the edge of the Jordan River, about to cross into the promised land. But have we gotten out of Egypt yet? In order to cross the Jordan, you got to cross the Red Sea. And it's the wilderness. It's that time in the wilderness that is the separate, that brings a person to who they're supposed to be. It's what they did in Egypt. Is it possible that a group of people I will not put the plagues upon you. And these people that were in Egypt, there was a group of Hebrews that the plagues no longer affected them. But was there a group of Hebrews that were still in Egypt that were experiencing the plagues?
So going back, Mike, to what I heard Yah say to me in prayer, there can be no distinction where there is not separation. And the accusation was, and it's not an accusation, it's basically a verdict. Yah doesn't accuse us, he announces our reality. This is your verdict. My people yearn to be syncretized, to be in step with, one with the world, and refuse to be separated. When you mentioned the wilderness experience, the verdict that Yah gave to Israel is, you are stiff-necked,
mm-hmm.
and you are hard of heart. To me, that's synonymous, and I may be wrong here, but maybe I should ask, is that synonymous with being stuck in your own routines and your own ruts and refusing to get out of it?
Oh,
there's nothing wrong with me, and I refuse to change. He will just have to accept me the way that I am. Do we have that attitude toward our master?
Okay, now you're going to meddling. Making excuses for, well, this is just who I am. This is who I am because of this that's happened in my life, because my upbringing, because the cat scratched me when I was 2 years old. Making excuses to not move forward. None of that works out well. None of it works out well. So, if any, and this is, this program, Foundations for Life, is just what we call it. Okay, it goes back how many years now that we were on Hebrew Nation Radio together?
It's probably about 6 or 6+ or something other.
Yeah, that we had the Torah Teacher Roundtable. We switched it to Foundations for Life, and that's for a purpose. Okay, if a person's looking to find a program that gives them warm fuzzies all the time, that is like, amen, and all the, you want the Holy Spirit goosebumps and all that kind of stuff. Let me tell you, folks, this isn't your program. Okay, you don't go into a house and get real excited about the foundation, but it's the foundation that holds everything else together.
Yeah.
So that's why Barry and I try to, on a weekly basis, come to you with something that's not the art on the wall. It's not the great
no fluff and puff from us.
Yeah, there's no fluff and puff. There's no foo-foo. We're not doing the flowered shower curtains. Okay, we're trying to just give you basic things, basic principles to look at your own foundation. Again, not with condemnation, but to consider, where am I? Where am I in this walk? Because if a person that does not examine this, Shaul said this, let a man examine himself to see whether he be in the faith. Shaul said, work out your own redemption with fear and trembling. Now, I look back at the words in at least in Greek, and I found out what that verse actually translates to. Get a hold of this, write this down. It's gonna absolutely blow your mind what this verse actually means. It says, work out your own redemption with fear and trembling.
Yeah.
It's not a trick, folks. It's not a trick. And so if we're not willing to take a good look. And honestly, you've heard me say that a man's greatest friend is an honest mirror. That actually comes out of the book of Yaakov or James. That we need to be looking in our mirror, asking the Father to examine us, and then waiting for the answer. The answer may not be pretty. It may not be something we want to hear. I want to think that I'm farther along than I am. I'd love to think that I'm, like, I got, like one step, I've got like one more step and I'm in the promised land. I'd love to see that, think that I'm there. I'm not. But what we're asking, going back to this thing, all the sickness and everything that's around us, part of that is, part of it I feel is the degradation of society, the lack of people taking care of themselves. And I'm talking about Messianics.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about you show up on Shabbat, and all the only place at Shabbat that you're at is the dessert table. Don't blame somebody else because you're not healthy. Okay. That's part of the process. It's part of the process. And so this is all about taking an honest look at ourselves and asking the Father to reveal it.
Here's another thought to add to this, Mike. What if the line of distinction had been drawn and those that were known to be walking uprightly and righteous didn't get COVID at all? It was pretty obvious that there was a line of distinction between the believing elements and portions of the earth and the unbelieving. Could we handle or respond appropriately to that line of distinction? Would we have stood in our camps and said, see, there only the sinners are getting this? The model of Yeshua is exemplified in the rituals and the protocols pertaining to Sarat, the skin disease that is translated as leprosy so often in our text, an outward malady that reveals an inward malady. Something's wrong on the inside and it manifests in the physical. Inside spiritually manifests in the physical. The priests were supposed to go out to the outer edge of the camp where the quarantine area for these people was located and see if anyone had been healed. Now, it was a rare thing from what I read that one would be healed of leprosy. But they went out and they examined them anyway. That tells me then what Yeshua did, he touched the lepers. There was no transfer of the malady to Yeshua, but rather his realm of the clean and the set apart overcame their realm of the unclean and the not set apart. And he reached into their realm and brought them into his realm. If the line of distinction had been drawn in 2020, in 2021, I have to think that we might have been more accusational than compassionate. When the line of distinctions are drawn, it is not our place to say, see there, we told you need to walk like us. Yeah. Look at me, I'm set apart. That's no different than the Pharisee that Yeshua examined, saying, I thank you that I have all these righteous things about me, and the sinner is beating his chest. Those who are on the wrong line of distinction that repent will be found more worthy than those who are on the other side of the line of distinction that are accusational and withholding their compassion.
I mean, Barry, it just took a very quick Facebook look during those days, and still does today, to see people posting their vehement judgment upon other people, and then they get sick. So yeah, I mean, I can go with you on that. That maybe some of this was about revealing arrogance, pride in our own lives, okay, or in someone's life. I won't dump everybody into that. Here's another aspect. I was talking with someone about this recently. Job said, "That which I feared has come upon me." Or we. I can't stand the word we. But
Well, twice you've used it here.
Yeah. I don't like it, okay, but sometimes you can't get away from the word. Okay, so if what I'm about to say, if it resonates with you, let it resonate. If it doesn't, throw it. Okay. Are we as a whole in the Messianic Hebrew roots walk, all of these people that are trying to follow Torah, are we afraid of the same thing the world's afraid of?
Good question.
And is that fear open the door? Does fear open the door for the plague that was not intended for us to overcome us?
It's a possibility. I know in my and Laura's case in 2020, we were at a family gathering event where someone was told you have a sinus infection. This is not COVID. And they were given sinus infection medications. We were not up in anyone's face. We used reasonable understanding of some distance, but we laughed. We had a great time. Only to, on our way home, I was in the car with Laura for 4.5 hours, and the further we drove, the worse she felt.
Yeah.
We went straight to a place to have her tested just to be on the safe side. She tested positive, and they told her, if your husband's been in the car with you for that long, he's positive too. I had mild symptoms by comparison to her. It wasn't an idea of fear. It was just proximity. But the effect was not detrimental, and I'm very thankful for that. Yeah. That's not to say that there are others like that came by innocently enough and didn't fare very well, or even passed away. I don't understand all of that. I do agree with you, though, that if you walk in fear, and we were just having a discussion in the last 24 hours about that here in the home. I remember going into public places and all you could see was someone's eyes. Everything was covered with a mask.
Yeah.
But you could see that it wasn't just fear, it was terror in people's eyes. And if you moved in any too close a presumed proximity to them, you could see them just shrieking back and like, don't touch me, don't touch me. I'm not going to touch anyone. I know you want your distance. But I remember walking through public places thinking, I will not fear this thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to succumb to it. And the fear was driven predominantly by the news. Exactly. Maybe we get a little segue here before we close up. In March of 2020, when it really began to hit, I noticed that every newscast, one after the other, was nothing but fear, and fear. We're all going to die from this thing. And I remember after about a day or two of that, I cut it off and I said, I refuse to watch the news over this thing. I'm not going to do it. and you'd be in someone's home and the news be on. The whole hour, half hour, whatever the length was nothing but COVID-driven manna, and people are terrorized. If you're syncretized with the world enough that the news of the day consumes you, then you're going to be so tied to what is earthly, you are failing to hear what is spiritual. The best thing that has happened to me in recent memory is my wife encouraging people to take an hour a day to pray. Mm-hmm. And it has helped me to discipline even further my prayer life. And I got to tell you, Mike, when you're focusing on things in prayer, you're not given to being driven by things in the earth. You start listening with a different set of ears. And perhaps what
listen to what the Father says, not to what other people are saying.
And say that again, you broke up.
Yeah, listen to what the Father's listen to what the Father's saying, not what people are saying.
It could be as old-fashioned as, if you want to be distinct and set apart, here's a novel idea. Pray. Just spend some quality time in prayer. No time limits here, no time constraints. Just seek Him and pray and hear what He has to say.
There you go.
Well, folks, thank you so much for spending these minutes with Mike and I. Hopefully we have been encouraging, a little bit challenging, and maybe your foundation can be strengthened. We look forward to comments. Please share them. Please write us. Let us know what you're hearing, what you're discerning. We look forward to seeing you again next week.